We discussed in a previous segment this MAGA correspondent, reporter, who is allowed now in the press briefing room. Her name is Natalie Winters. Now, I want to show you an interview to give you a sense of, what type of people are these new media voices. It's horrifying. Who is now being bolstered in many ways by the White House. It's not that new media voices shouldn't be allowed more access to the White House. They should. But this is just an attempt by the Trump White House to bring in only hardcore loyalists, cheerleaders, sycophants, all of that. And some of them are extremely extreme. Natalie Winters is one of them. I will say, if you're saying, I think I heard the name Natalie Winters before, we did talk about her. And this segment's me only going to be criticizing her because she espouses a lot of crazy MAGA stuff here. In the other segment, I defended her. What? Indeed, because it was this Daily Mail writer, and I was just, again, making the point that we should criticize these figures without making it about absurd things, like in her case, a Daily Mail writer with the name something Hammer. You remember that? Yeah. Jack Hammer or something like, not Jack Hammer. And we pontificated about maybe his slogan could be "It's Hammer Time" whatever. But he and another Daily Mail writer were talking about her quote unquote skimpy outfits. And I was just like, that's so inappropriate. Focus on her being extreme, radical, not her outfits. Bizarre, misogyny much, right? All those things we talked about it. Good segment. If you just search Luke Beasley skimpy, you didn't think you were going to search that, you'll find the video. It was a fun one. But anyways, no more defending her, because here it's all about the issues. Here she is talking about the economy.
Just on the economy, I mean, the numbers that came out yesterday were pretty troubling, weren't they, in terms of, quarter decline, 0.3% down. It was 2.4% at the end of the last quarter, at the end of last year. Do you think the MAGA voters, the MAGA family, is okay with what might well be a recession down the line? Is that a price they're prepared to pay when they were promised that things would just be better and better as soon as he got into office?
Well, I don't know about the recession fear-mongering, but
these are numbers. You get 2 negative quarters, you get a recession, right? So,
well, I think we had a lot of those under Joe Biden.
No, let's talk about that.
Did you know? No. What?
The quarters, you get a recession, right? So,
well, I think we had a lot of those under Joe Biden.
Let's talk about this administration.
No, I know, but two quarters of downward revisions, we had that under Joe Biden. Well, of course, so I'm just saying we should apply standards fairly.
And at the time, there was a recession. It was caused for all sorts of reasons. And I'm not making excuses for Biden's economic record. I'm just wondering whether the MAGA crowd that voted for President Trump because they were told by him that their economic lot would get better will be okay with what might well be a recession.
Well, I think we'll see. I think we're in the midst of negotiating trade deals that are going to fundamentally restructure and reorient, hopefully successfully, the entire kind of trading dynamic that exists here in the United States. So yeah, maybe it's short-term gain, and that's probably not a very politically salient or powerful message to be pushing, but it's true. Pain, sure. I think it's maybe just adjustment. I know we're parsing our words, but
She got all discombobulated. She said, I think you could use the phrase short-term gain. And he goes, oh, no, you mean short-term pain? Which is what y'all been saying, short-term pain for long-term gain. And she went, I don't know about pain. Wait, so you're promising this? The GDP contraction is the short-term gain that we're getting? Natalie, I'm confused. She said that a bunch of consecutive negative GDP quarters happened under Biden. Again, look at this. No, when we were coming out of the pandemic, I do think Q2 2022 was a loss marked at some point, but that's not how it's visualized here. But regardless, we were getting out of the pandemic. This was the only, and then bum 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 bam, and the bam was Trump, of course. So if we got another negative quarter, we would technically, by that traditional definition, be in a recession, which means a lot of pain in a lot of people's life. But apparently that's short-term gain, or what? Short-term gain for long-term pain, baby. Trump 2028. All right. So my thesis here again is I just find it utterly disturbing and horrifying that this is journalism now to MAGA. She is journalism. This is Tic Tac.
This is Tic Tac.
This is journalism. And yeah, I don't love it. It's not great. It's not good. It's not fine, even, if I think about it. Please do click the subscribe button. Let's listen to more.
Have some muscle, we may as well throw it around, because what we're doing is not working. And if it were working to those global elites, tell me why President Trump has now won 3 elections on campaigning.
Let's call it 2.
3 on the idea that the current system, the status quo, does not work.
I'm really interesting. I mean, just on the 3 elections. I mean, he won 2 elections, and people believe that the election in 2020, he still believes that was rigged. That is not true, is it? I mean, let's be honest. 2020 election.
3 elections, maybe 4. Steve Bannon says 2028.
Okay, what do you think?
That's just not constitutional. The previous thing he said is not factual. And we're supposed to, they get upset. Do you know what they call me? I'm going to do the Nancy Mace thing. Let me read you some of the things that MAGA people, they said you're a dirty little, no, I'm not actually going to do that. But that people get, MAGA folks, you know how I like to try to talk with them. Hey, let's talk. And they'll get so upset. They'll say you're elitist, you're talking down, you're so gross because you don't even treat us with respect. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to treat you with respect, but you're making it so difficult. Not all MAGA voters. I'm saying like this. We're supposed to treat you with the same respect as Bob Woodward? Really? You're just a MAGA. I'm an influencer. I hate that term, but like you're a MAGA influencer. It's not really, but they hold themselves in this high regard and think that they're doing the Lord's work when they're just a propagandist arm for the White House, which is the worst form of journalism. You're supposed to challenge the powerful. And it's just whoop, 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 whoop. Like the reporters will come in to the press briefing room. Caroline, excuse me, Trump looks healthy. This is an actual question that one of these reporters asked. Trump looks healthier than he ever has. Is he working out with Bobby Kennedy? You can take that down. Let's move on to the next subject. This is on Ukraine.
And Ukrainian civilians who've been suffering enormously, thanks to Russian missiles, much more than Russian civilians have been suffered because of Ukrainian missiles. Is that okay with you? I mean, is that
total side thought? Why is the table so small? It's kind of a weird context for an interview where you're just kind of like right in front of the person. Okay.
Suffered because of Ukrainian missiles. Is that okay with you? I mean, is that okay? The basic idea that there's a civilian population being pummeled by, a neighboring power?
I think independent of, Russian-fired missiles against Ukrainian-fired missiles against Russia, the people who have the most blood on their hands are the legacy media. Frankly, the Biden regime, who have been fomenting the war there and continuing it and giving this false...
It started because Russian tanks invaded Ukraine.
I said, excluding the actual people firing, yes. The idea that Ukraine ever really had a chance and that the Biden regime needed to plow $200+ billion led to needless and senseless death. They did not invade under President Trump.
Do you think they should have just folded over Ukraine when the Russians walked in?
I think
we would have had... Are you blaming them for not having surrendered?
I can tell you really love this idea that everyone in MAGA world is quick to blame the Russians. No, I'm blaming...
I'm just saying you said that they shouldn't have...
I blame Joe Biden.
Yeah, but...
I blame American weakness and the idea that he invaded under Joe... He did not invade under President Trump, right?
But he did invade. That could have been...
Yes.
So what if you were Ukrainian, how would you have responded to that?
You can fight back. My issue is that you are straw manning the approach of what the United States and negligibly our Western allies took. If every dollar of our aid packages actually ended up in Ukraine, we'd probably be having a little bit of a different conversation right now. The idea that sending $250+ billion from the United States with whatever small paltry amount European nations put up to, we can't.
Okay, she just doesn't even know the numbers. She's speaking about the wrong number in the United States. She doesn't know that Europe gave more than we did. We do know where we spent the money. What else did she mention? I wish the reporter would have pressed more, because I liked the question of what do you think Ukraine should have done? Russia invaded. Well, it never would have happened under Trump. It never would have happened under Trump. No, I know. Even though he's president now and he said he was going to end it and he couldn't, but apparently we're supposed to believe him that it never would have happened. But even after the other part of his two-part statement, when he would talk about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which was he would end it in 24 hours, so it didn't even come close to happening, and it's becoming increasingly clear they're just about to walk away from negotiating altogether. But if you can step for 1 second into a little bit more of an intellectually honest space and say, what do you think Ukraine and the U.S. should have done in the case that Trump's magic wand, bippity-boppity-boo, don't invade Putin, didn't work? What should we have done? And the answer was that. I don't even know what she was saying. The money we spent, we didn't spend it right, we spent too much, or they're not spending it right, or we shouldn't have said that. I mean, we can listen to more, but it's just very disoriented.
Actually, just to correct you on that, we did actually, the European nations in aggregate sent almost exactly the same amount of money as the US, if not slightly more.
So you said nation
No, more. We've looked at the numbers.
versus one country.
The EU, I mean, the
collectively.
EU, but it's a big country, and the EU together is a
collectively versus the US that cares a lot more about Ukraine because it's a lot closer to you guys, and there's a lot more, I would say, important to it's closer to you guys. All I'm saying is that on the front of these funds, there's no auditing mechanism. We don't know actually where they're going. If I asked you, can you actually tell me 100% certified veracity that all these funds ended up where they actually did? No, we have so much reporting that they've ended up, whether it's the black...
Okay, and then on to a bunch of things we talked about with Marjorie's recent list of those things. So they just say, oh, so you're telling me, oh, okay, so, interesting. So you're telling me that you know exactly where every penny went? You can tell me right now off the top of your head where every single penny went? That's what I thought. No, but we a big part of it we spent on replenishing U.S. arms that we gave to them. We gave them the old ones, then we got the new ones for ourselves. And then invested money in direct aid, handed that to them. And then you have humanitarian aid. And then you have loans that we've given. And you can dive into the specifics. And like with anything of that dollar amount, there's going to be some gray area in some places as to exactly how each dollar was spent, just like our own Pentagon's really bad at accounting that with our own expenses. But all of that is perfectly fine to bring up if you weren't also just pushing deep, profound falsehoods about this conflict, right? If you were on board with my general factual framework and then went, hey, but also I would love to maybe do another audit, figure out, just make sure it's a lot of money, that fine. Always great. I want our U.S. military to do better audits. Yes. And that doesn't justify you just running cover for ridiculous Russian narratives or not being honest. Natalie, be honest. Trump failed on this promise, did he not? And what does that mean about y'all's ideology? Because you said proof that Biden was a warmonger who was stimulating this conflict was that he couldn't end it because he was making it go on longer. And then Trump gets into office and he can't either. Does that maybe say, oh, maybe it's because Putin's actually wanting the war? Ukraine has defended themselves very effectively. She also articulated that. And this isn't about U.S. warmongering, but instead Russian warmongering. Here's some Sky News reporting.
Very good morning to you. We start with breaking news this hour. In the last few minutes, the Kremlin has said that the war in Ukraine is too complicated to be resolved immediately. President Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, said this morning that the Russian leader is open to peace in Ukraine. He said very intense work is going on with the United States, but said the conflict was so complicated that the quick progress that Washington wants to achieve is difficult. The spokesman...
It's so complicated, do you know what I mean? Like, we want to keep all of the land we've illegally invaded, and they don't want us to. It's very complicated. There's just a lot of factors, right? Like, we want illegally annexed land. We don't want any accountability for mass murder. And they sort of aren't okay with that. It's weird. It's complicated. It's very complicated. A lot of gray areas. One of the clip.
Do you ever see yourself questioning what this administration does? I mean,
All the time. I think the mass
Okay,
deportation.
this is funny. Wait, this is funny. Okay. This is great. Do you ever question the Trump administration? First of all, not to their face, barely. It's just, how are you so awesome? But then let's listen to her list. It's, oh, you do question? Interesting. Let's listen.
of questioning what this administration does? I mean,
All the time. I think the mass deportation numbers need to be higher. I think the EOs on the law firms going after their government security clearances and
Are wrong.
contracts are a great start, but I think they need to have
Oh,
formal
good
and proper
start.
investigations. I think DOJ, I don't know exactly what the time frame would be. I would say I've been disappointed in the lack of investigations announced or grand juries impaneled or whatever. I think you need to see more actual, dare I say the word, retribution coming from some of these departments. I think we have...
so your criticism, they haven't done enough. That's
yeah,
your
I think they
criticism.
need to be pushing more
Most people think they've done too much.
for an audit to Ukraine. They should build CCOT.
Will you, Natalie Winters, is that the real name? That's a cool real name if that's the name. Gosh, I got stuck with Luke Beasley. She got Natalie Winters. Someone else has Jackhammer. It's just not fair. Not a fair world. This Thursday, starring Jackhammer. How hard is it to legally change a name? What if my last name was Warm? All right, focus. So, Natalie, excuse me, question. Do you ever criticize Trump's authoritarianism? Yeah, I actually do. Thanks for asking. He doesn't do enough authoritarianism. He should do more of it. And I'm very critical of that. That was her answer. Are you ever critical? Yeah, he needs to be more fascist, was essentially her answer. He needs to do more going after law firms who represents people that he doesn't like. He needs to do more in terms of, she used the word retribution, to lock up his political opponent, and needs to do more deportations that even by Trump appointed judges have been deemed to be illegal. Not deportations, but the Alien Enemies Act implementation of them. So if you are excited about the next generation of MAGA journalists, there it is. Share your thoughts in the comments. Get the bonus show. Why not? Join button below.